Part 3, Home, a delusional part of acceptance. Times have improved since those days in the 30s, although complete and equitable freedom for Black Americans have not been attained. There has been a ceiling with attempted limitations placement upon the existence, lives, and continuation of African Americans. Unfortunately, so many have capitulated and yielded in their pursuit in finding an escape to freedom through deception, manipulation, and maligned aggression tactics in blocking every road of opportunities, curtailing their thinking with confinement as prisoners of poverty, environmental enclosures, and captors of capitalism, robbing them of hope, being abandoned in agony, mired in their miseries. We have endured, tolerated, and persisted through millenniums of turmoil and fragmented freedom. Truth is an expression of life, exposing freedom and love, being lexicons of existence, an illustration of idioms denoting the actuality of mankind. No man has the authority of the abolition of this truth with disparities, deviations, and variations of freedom. These are rights conceived, consummated, and executed by the Lord, God Almighty, prevalent and perdurable to all descendants and offspring of mankind, symbolizing this eternal endowment of an apodictic truth. Living under continuous threat, turmoil, and turbulence, we have survived and flourished in some areas. However, this environment is a wavering instability and uncertainty, unremitting by the white majority, bearing a suppressing a daunting toll of resources of missed opportunity, vanquished by the laws and rules promulgated by white America. Of course, white America has not capitulated to the realization of these losses, but when your rule is primacy, there is no prerequisite for comprehensive reviews of past human rights occurrences. Regardless, the truth is irrefragable. It cannot and will not be denied, repudiated, or negated. It will remain standing, alone, undiscovered and unexplored until its day of reckoning is at hand, devouring all lies in its lights, a pathway illuminating and elucidating its nemesis of darkness, as it is expelled and jettisoned into an arising purging sun. At times, the truth needs to be exposed by forgiveness. The person at fault needs to realize they have forgiveness, as releasing the truth they has been hiding can more easily be liberated, freed, and unconfined. But your nemesis is there, and at some point, in most ways, he must be identified and confined. Unfortunately, his location is hidden, not knowing exactly which one is him. When exactly will he show his face to extract his damages upon my scalp? Mr. Whiteman is clever, when he needs to be, hiding right before your eyes, lurking in the shadows behind a clear screen of hate, just waiting to annihilate your integrity, character, and persona. Your disposition is in danger any progression that has been made. When will he show his true face, or will he remain hidden, awaiting the appropriate moment to trounce upon you, attempting destruction? Recently, there has been an unveiling of those against us, pursuing an agenda of devastation and annihilation, exposing their leaders and followers, as they are no longer afraid to reveal themselves and their doctrine with an intent of changing the clock to the days of total control by white America, placing African American again in their clutches of containment of continued atrocities, brutalities, and cruelties. These white nationalists are proudly on display, as they have a leadership in high places in this society standing alongside under a banner of hate and division. Recently, an insight was perceived stating, an equal amount of time has passed between the years 1918 and 1970 and the years 2023 and 1970. I was alarmed from the supposition to be made between the social transition of our American society in those specific years. Usually, when making a divergence of those time periods, my initial thoughts always pertain to technological advances and then maybe the vicissitudes in the social fabric of America. Technology will continue its advancement, undisturbed. However, the people are a country greatest and can be its worst liability. The future of this country, as it always has been, are its citizens. America has been slow and reluctant establishing total freedom in all aspects of this society for each of its residents, which has cost America exceedingly. America should have far exceeded economically and technologically distanced itself from every country on this planet. Unfortunately, white America still shows its racial intolerances and subjugation, which is more a people intolerance than government xenophobia in some instances. I was around and fully cognizant of my environment in 1970 as I was coming of age, yet, as I remember my thoughts in 1970 in my mind, 1918 was a world apart from 1970. However, after an analysis of the occurrences of 1918, with the end of World War I and in the presidency of Warren B. Harding, which had the same racial predispositions of Donald Trump, was totally accepted by the American public, both then and now. In this regard, the social consciousness of America has truly digressed, even from 1990s. However, when the economic power of this country suffers and deteriorates with unemployment, inflation and other economic woes of the U.S. economy over the past decades, people need a scapegoat, someone to blame for their dilemma, besides themselves. And African Americans were placed on that hit list of culprits, being the perfect candidates for exploitation of the social welfare programs, causing overspending by the government, supporting our economic paralysis. These were falsely assumed accusations, but when things are bad, people need someone to blame causing their problems. It is the same remedy the judicial and law enforcement system uses, getting tough on drug or 3 strikes and you're out. African Americans are the focal point and the target of those systems. When America needs to display a new tactic to white America, they are new policies or laws on drug enforcement and longer sentences established by the judicial system. Every way possible to induce penalties for being born black has been inaugurated, instituted and instigated against African Americans to minimalize, extinguish and diminish advancement, development and progression, the goals, ambitions and aspirations of African Americans, identifying, labeling and beckoning America as their home. Man is and has been searching for immortality outside of his being, as he has recognized his imperfections, inflammability, failures and fallacies in determining incorruptibility, flawlessness and exactness, through methodical examination of one's self, in comparison with his surroundings. As it is obvious, perfection does exist, but not in his realm of reality. There has to be existent and discovered a foundation of completeness and infallibility in order to ascertain the existence of man, discerning in this environment and the proper path of clarifying his presence, actuality and continuation. Perfection must be a viable revelation, as there are too many things in this environment functions are beyond the intellectual capacity of this reality without consideration for the entirety of this universe, which there can only theoretical conceptions and speculation of its creation and maintenance. The presence of perfection is accentuated and mandated by the existence of the universe and the components thereof, being an organized,
black people,
managed, and planned
to my
system
black
as
people, can I
conceptions
see?
conceived into reality with rationale design and purpose for eternal progression and existence. Rationale for an infinite exist in order to further explain and understand this universe and its known functions, due to its continued expansion and existence. Man has not totally discovered himself and his total functions and controls.
We explained it good enough the first time.
Completely
I
understanding
thought we
his
explained it good enough the
dwelling place
first
of where it
time.
cannot be fully attained and understood. Man has to realize, ascertain and embrace a truth for all things, allowing full progression into a realm of reality uncultivated. This is a failing of man, unwilling to understand in order to master this world, and unveiling and defining all things. He must submit and accept he is not the master, but only a child on a journey of incessant and continuous learning. All that man has seen and will ever see is based upon one truth, encapsulating, permeating and infiltrating all that is known and will be known. This truth was and is the adhesive, the binding elements, compelling and compulsory, exuding supremacy, authority and sovereignty structuring this universe. This truth is interminable, infinite and constant with illimitable authorization over this universe emanating from an entity of vast dominion and unrestrained authority, being the author, creator and architect of all that is and all that will ever be. The truth is an absolute, never requiring forgiveness. Man is searching for something greater than himself, trying to reach perfection, if only from afar. Part of the convergence of tradition and culture should be the utilization of that potential of reviewing and reassessing those reoccurring cycles of past events of customs is for the development of the activities of behaviors of past ancestors, and that social networking and work development should be reviewed, assessed and examined for weaknesses and corrections with the intention of improvements leading to perfection or close proximity thereof, for an improved thriving present culture. Progressing beyond the preconceived limitations and expectations. At present, in the NFL, there is a dispute on, again, why so few African American head coaches, when every year there are vacancies. There are 26 teams in the NFL, which has are 70% black. Again, limitation can be seen, with only 9.4% of head coaches are black. Does this number reflect the expectant hiring rates in a sport that is 70% black? Is this a reflection of racial profile for head coaches or the expected racial profiling of the white ownership of NFL teams? Is this the anticipated limitations of entrenched white privileges, racial bias and preferential treatment, oppression and subjugation? These owners are stating what has happened to African Americans for 400 years. African Americans are the laborers, not management material. You can work for me but not beside me, being not quite good enough to represent those positions of management, executives and directors of my team. The sports industry would seemingly be a refuge absent of racial barriers, as the agenda should be all about winning, being a place functioning without any racial barriers, with all decisions based upon the best player for the position, including coaches and the team administration and management. However, regardless, even in the sports industry, racial discrimination, inequality and intolerance has not fully differentiated itself from these decisions of viewing a man and his skills only, without bias, prejudice or partiality, based upon racial preferences. There is no such place where the decision of man is involved, where there has been or ever will be complete, fair, objective and impartial decisions. Determinations and evaluations will be made without race being a major factor in those findings. This is America, her past, present and future, the heritage, history, tradition and culture, prevailing for over 400 years and counting. For over 400 years, African Americans have existed in a state of uncertainty, amid restraints, subjugation and confinement, in this land faced with diminished opportunity, economic deprivation and systemic impoverishments, attempting to deplete ambitions and depose tranquility. Yet, here we remain, persecuted but prevailing, denied and deprived, yet resilient and irrepressible. These are the oppressive actions of an oppressive state. These actions have impregnated and became the culture of America, where once upon a time, America was displaying signs of healing, but recently, it has digressed into that same society lacking social racial intolerance standards to a point nearing a total racial divide, completely vehement, shredding the racial fabric of this country, threatening the existence of America. America incarcerates more people than any other country in the world, with the vast majority, as a percentage, being African Americans. Incarceration is expensive, at an annual cost of incarceration fee of $39,158 for each federal prisoner. That figure represents more than the average Social Security recipient annually, more than the average unemployment benefits paid annually, more than the yearly welfare benefits for a family of 4. The state with the highest per capita expenditure on welfare per month is Alaska, where Black Americans are a very small minority, at 3.7% of the population. These are their own citizens of our society, but is that really a true statement? Some people commit crimes without any availability of opportunities, which are exacerbated by limited opportunities in mostly high crime areas without the availability of initiatives renewing the abilities of people to maintain an objective with limited skills. This is not for the lack of wanting and expressing a desire to succeed, but due to the overwhelming obstacles of moving forward in this society, living and existing in an environment initiating, activating and instigating criminal activities, accentuating its accessibility, without offering any other opportunities expressing creativity, incentives or inspiration propelling aspirations for successful career advancement. If you have not experienced living in a deprived environment, it is difficult to understand life from the outside looking in, trying to even comprehend its difficulties, overcoming barriers and obstacles with little motivation of forward momentum, or legal propositions, having a better chance of having something or living the straight and narrow and having nothing. America is a country of potentials which are identified almost in every location across this nation. For some, it remains a potential, far from achievable or attainable, which is great, if there is a reasonable chance of success, but for others living in environments of poverty, hopelessness, disparity, dissolution, disdainful, and disappointment are words defining lives in these impoverished conditions and diminished environments. People living under these conditions may want to change, but changes are unattainable, unachievable, or unreachable. There is potential in these settings, but used in illegal activities, as this environment does express innovation and achievement, but by activities facilitating confinement and death, it is a known, not an illusion, expecting a long active life. Humans don't choose death. With other choices, it is all they can visualize as a life, no alternatives. For them, there are no other viable considerations. When every member of the previous generation is consumed in the same terminal lifestyle events and actions, without enough voices available, guidance displaying and revealing ways to escape, what are the alternatives? But more importantly, how is the escape made palpable? But first, it most shown and believed, it is a viable way of escape. These environments were created remnants of 400+ years of oppression, segregation and racial intolerance, forcing African Americans into conditions of restrictive, regressive and retractive enclosures, offering only the remnants of society and capitalism into an impermeable truculent existence dispersed from society. Periodically, situations require to raise your level of awareness and level of understanding in order to meet expectations in the pursuit of the necessary operations, meeting the expected and necessary goals of that required activity or task in fulfilling the needed obligation. The truth is in a constant state of reflection, exposing past events of designed deceit, disillusionment and denials, causing an alteration of events in favor of the adversary for a temporary advantage of future occurrences. The truth will not be denied, discouraged or detoured from its intended path of remedied atrocities meant to destroy, desolate and annihilate lives and dreams. Truth is everything a lie is not. A lie is prevaricate, malleable, creating a state of quandary, where the truth has equanimity and is exhaustive in its endurance and capacity to linger and wait for its opportunity in trouncing and demolishing lies and fallacious deceptions. A lie is conveyed for selfish gain by deceiving one or more parties into acceptance and believing an erroneous fabrication planned and conceived concealing the truth. A lie has an inaugurated lifespan designed and formulated by its owner, but weakened daily by its transitioning from person to person. Lies are treacherous, unabsorbable and unappealable, never conducive creative of void, as it stands alone, outside, seeking acceptance, until it is heard and diluted by someone having knowledge and seeking the truth. In other cases, the originator, the owner of the lie, lives with the lie of their creation, as it becomes a millstone of deceitfulness lodged around the neck, fearing this unbearable burden will be exposed, causing more pain and harm than the value of its antecedent. Humans have a way of making despondent comments and interpretation and dissenting comments and views regarding people having less resources, different racial structure and people they have determined lacking value and human deficiencies. African Americans meet the prescribed labels of all these requirements and were determined to be valueless, subhuman, intellectually inferior, lower-level species of humanity, all proving the Black America was an inferior class of human deserving the same rights as white America. These fundamental beliefs have not changed for many white Americans, as this has been the foundation securing their beliefs and the basis of reasons and actions. Some people are just role players knowing the beliefs, thoughts and considerations they should contain, but they are just there for the show of pretending for the dollars and the fame. Our ancestral origins are in Africa, a continent full of rich resources, but has been invaded by colonial powers attempting to extract their riches and treasures and leaving each country in chaos and confusion, with the overlords exploiting all to be selfishly stolen for themselves, while their countrymen are left with nothing but hopes and dreams. After the departure of the colonial's predecessors, the leadership team taking control and power learned from their colonial's authorities very well, using the same practices of depleting the resources for their sole benefit, with a corrupt government only supporting themselves and forgetting their citizens in the financial gains of the resources beneath their feet. Now, here are the Chinese government, another colonial exploiter of the African continent. However, their methodology is predicated on contractual exploitation through financial adversities by pilfering natural resources. African Americans are a people without a home, being extricated from our ancestral homeland and never being allowed full birthright in our America paradise. The difficulties of this life are vast and dynamic, without delay, interruption, or postponement. The entanglements humans encounter are essential and imperative. They are integral, intertwined part of the human experience, regardless of income, social status, ethnicity, location, or age. There will be experiences each will encounter causing stress, uncertainty, anxiety, and apprehension. However, some will confront more than others, based upon racial identity, skin tone, and ethnicity, which will command distinctive differences in behavior and actions. All people require of their government is a chance, opportunity, as we are the citizens of this nation and have a desire to expand, develop and progress, to cultivate, promote and encourage prosperity in each community. All the government needs to do is invest, empower and finance improvements, education and advancement, and the government's return on investment will be triple-fold. But moreover, treat all citizens as equal partners in this opportunities available in this country. America will grow, GNP will increase by 15% or more by just providing an equal capitalization to all. This would resolve so many other issues in our economic system and reduce criminal activities. When there are no visible pathways or limitations, roadblocks, barriers and impediments, progression of movements is hindered, irritation, irascibility and exasperation is commonplace, oppression becomes persecution, which is named control. Part of your citizens no longer have a voice, but offensive actions have now replaced the voices of reason, speaking in a much louder, unavoidable tone. The right-wing Republican Party has begun using the emasculated voices of African American politicians professing the big lie in subterfuge support of the views, sentiments, and opinions of African Americans. The greatest value of assets in a country are its people. The country using its people as its greatest resources will be the greatest country in the world. America has not valued its resource of African Americans. It uses and depletes as many African Americans in attaining the greatest profits available on African American labor, while those not contributing to its plundering of this resource are subjugated, persecuted, and distressed by poverty, criminal justice abuses, and deficiencies of society. The primary responsibilities of a country to its citizens is security, food, housing, and education. Depending upon the resulting expectation of this investment, will be the success and proliferation of the populace, will define the greater return on the investment in these essential requirements. Education is the key, but all are dependent upon each other for positive results. In the exclusion socially, politically, and economically, there is not much hope of gaining strength, as you are socially separated, economically torn, without a savior or help, and politically connected but without power, with few in numbers and where there is an advantage. These are the life-blood ingredients for prosperous country. If only one of their requirements are deficient, the entire design will disintegrate or will fail to provide the expected return and will cost the government more money. This has been the crime of America against African American. There is a lack in each of these elements of success, as they are all dependent upon the success of each, if success is the required results. African Americans has experienced an existence of lack in some or all these categories of success. However, this has been the formula of the government for Black Americans, never providing enough, but just partial, so they can say there was some money distributed. For so many, it has been a choice of selecting which of these essentials will be a manifestation, with many only able to choose the bare human essentials of life, which are food and housing, with only the minimum education standards. However, some don't have the aspiration for extended education, as it has not dawned upon them education is essential for success or survival, which cannot be blamed on the government. There is always a percentage of people not able to perceive the need for more education and do not want to further or advance their learning except only by the experiences of life. In summary, these egregious actions are only part of the systematic activities of a government and a portion of its citizen in the attempted desolation of its black citizens by an assortment of racially motivated actions of oppression, bigotry, discrimination, prejudice, racial injustice, systematic, institutional, structural, racism, certifying, clarifying, and confirming, explicitly, this is not our home. We were never brought here for fair, reasonable, unbiased, and equal treatment. With full realization of the governing laws of America, signifying this is our home. Slaves don't have homes and don't require a home, only a substandard dwelling, complying with all the other inferior and deficient treatment, while placed in America. This has been 400 years of indentured servitude, living under subsistent conditions, impoverished provisions, and injustices of the laws. There has been gradual improvement, periodically, but it has been 400 years and things are still not equal between white American and Black America. Movement has been made from inhumane treatment, persistent harassment by law enforcement, to where citizen slaves never meant to have the full protection and rights of the Constitution of this United States of America. This is the end of Part 4, without a country, without a home. We have been delineated, as a people, without a home. For the past 400 years, the chains have only been extended, not removed. A place called home is the last stop on the train to acceptance, forbearance, and approbation. No one will look at the color of your skin creating a disadvantage, detriment, or impediment. There is no place like. Thank you for providing an ear for this narrative.